Good day, everyone. Good day, Professor Ma'am Pen Carnisi. I am Lottie Sabinis, reporting for the topic Philippine Strategy for Sustainable Development, or Pssd. The only rational way of planning the country's national progress is through sustainable development, meeting the needs of citizens of today without limiting the options of future generations to fulfill their needs. It is development without destruction. It is the achievement of material progress without compromising the life support functions of natural systems. It is the pursuit of higher levels of quality of life while preserving or even enhancing environmental quality. It is the only true development. The goal of Pssd. Sustainable development stresses the need to view environmental protection and economic growth as mutually compatible. This implies that growth objectives should be compatible not only to the needs of society, but also to the natural dynamics and carrying capacities of ecosystems. The goal of the Pssd is to achieve economic growth with adequate protection of the country's biological resources and its diversity, vital ecosystem functions, and overall environmental quality. The following objectives have been identified toward the attainment of the Pssd goal: to ensure the sustainable utilization of the country's natural resources, such as forests, croplands, marine and freshwater ecosystems; to promote social and intergenerational equity in the utilization of the country's natural resources; to develop management programs to preserve the country's heritage of biological diversity; to promote the technologies of sustainable lowland agriculture and upland agroforestry through the encouragement of research and development and demonstration projects; to achieve and maintain an acceptable quality of air and water; to promote and encourage an exploration program for economically important minerals; to promote research and development in environmentally sound and economically efficient processing of the country's mineral and energy resources; to enhance the foundation for scientific decision-making through the promotion and support of education and research in ecosystems; to promote and support the integration of population concern including migration variables and family welfare considerations in development programs with special emphasis in ecologically critical areas; to expand substantially the family planning programs and responsible parenthood program. Guiding Principle. Sustainable development, as defined by the World Commission on Environment and Development, is meeting the needs and aspirations of the people without compromising the ability of future generations to meet theirs. It is difficult, however, to make use of a general definition to guide actions with regard to particular development situations. This general definition needs to be further explained in operational terms. Operationally, sustainable development can be further explained through the following principles, which form the guiding framework for actions under the Pssd. Systems-oriented and integrated approach in the analysis and solution of development problems. A concern for meeting the needs of future generations, otherwise termed as intergeneration equity. A concern for equity of people's access to natural resources. A concern not to exceed the carrying capacity of ecosystems. Living on the interest rather than on the capital or stock of natural resources. Maintenance or strengthening of vital ecosystem functions in every development activity. A concern for resource use efficiency. Promotion of research on substitutes, recycling, explorations from revenues derived from the utilization of non-renewable resources. A recognition that poverty is both a cause and a consequence of environmental degradation. And promotion of citizens' participation and decentralization in implementing programs. General strategies of Pssd. The Pssd has for its core a number of implementing strategies. This is aimed at resolving and reconciling the diverse and sometimes conflicting environmental, demographic, economic, and natural resources use issues arising from the country's development efforts. First is the integration of environmental considerations in decision-making. The underlying theme in sustainable development is that economic and environmental concern must be addressed simultaneously in the planning or decision-making process. Second strategy is the proper pricing of natural resources. The most widespread opportunity for improving resource management is to treat natural resources as truly scarce, not as if they were free. This is done by proper pricing based on the cost of replenishment, increasing their supply, and providing appropriate substitutes. In essence, this strategy aims to correct the gross underpricing of natural resources like logs and minerals that is substantially responsible for the wasteful extraction and utilizations of these resources. Third strategy is the property rights reform. Natural resources have a tendency to be exploited as free resources by individuals, even though they are in effect scarce resources. This is the case for open access resources in which there is a strong tendency for misuse and depletion. The fourth is the establishment of integrated protected areas system. Protected areas should therefore be established for the conservation of wildlife and unique ecosystems, with the end in view of conserving genetic resources for scientific, educational, cultural, and historical views. The establishment of protected areas should be preceded by a reassessment of the status of parks and equivalent reserves. This will serve as the basis for developing rehabilitative strategies for degraded parks and at the same time identify new areas where conservation of genetic resources and preservation of biological diversity can be pursued. The fifth strategy is the rehabilitation of degraded ecosystems. Rehabilitation of degraded ecosystems is a significant strategy given the massive destruction of ecosystems that has already occurred. Under such condition, nature's regenerative capacity is not enough. Deliberate rehabilitative efforts are needed. The next strategy is the strengthening of residuals management in industry or the pollution control. In the Philippines, resource recovery should prove highly economical because materials and energy costs are quite high relative to the labor cost. Another strategy is the integration of population concern and social welfare in development planning. Population is the critical factor in any effort at sustainable development. Population and the values exposed determine the speed at which productivity can be increased, or conversely the pressures on land and natural resources brought to bear by the process of development. For a developing country like the Philippines, it is important that the population factor in all its dimensions is turned into a real asset for building a strong industrial base, for multiplying productive forms of livelihood, and for preserving and improving fragile ecosystems and the overall natural resource environment. Another strategy is inducing growth in the rural areas. Economic recovery and long-term stability depend on increasing incomes and employment in the rural areas where a majority of our people reside. It should be again noted that the rural poor are linked very closely to natural resources. Their actions have a direct impact on natural resources. Conversely, any change in the actual and potential productivity of these resources have serious repercussions on their present and future welfare, even on their very survival. The sheer number of rural poor already in place right on or beside fragile ecosystems make them a formidable force either for environmental destructions or protection. Next strategy is the promotion of environmental education. Decisions are ultimately a political responsibility, but the likelihood of the best choices being made is greatly enhanced when there is widespread knowledge and understanding of all aspects of the issues at hand. This could be achieved by integrating environmental concepts into elementary and secondary schools. This will equip people with the basic capability to make up their own minds in an informed way and do something about their decisions. The last general strategy is the strengthening of citizens' participation and constituency building. Lessons from both failures and success in environmental and developmental efforts have shown that citizens' participation is an important decisive factor. Absence or lack of it has caused failures. Its active presence has resulted not only in efforts meeting immediate targets, but also in the assured sustainability of positive trends that have been initiated. The conceptual framework shall be the basis for the formulation of strategies for each of the identified major sectors, namely population, environment and natural resources, agriculture, industry, infrastructure, and energy. A review of each sector, except for the infrastructure sector, has been undertaken as part of the formulation process. This section presents the preliminary results of this review, including current efforts, key issues, and key measures is needed. That's the end of my report. Thank you, everyone.